Engagers, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration to help us in the process of using games and gamification in our daily lives, for example, to learn what we are teaching. And I am Rob Alvarez. I work at Ironhack, teach at IE Business School University, and so much more, and host this podcast. If you have an extra second, please go ahead and subscribe for free to our email list at professorgame.com/subscribe. Hey Engagers, welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game podcast, and we are today with Josh. But Josh, before we take off, are you prepared to engage?
Absolutely.
And you have Josh with us today because he is a podcaster on the Josh Bolton Show. He had a bit of an interesting up and coming, and he had many odd jobs along the way to get him to where he is currently at. The main thing he enjoyed about his childhood was martial arts. He has a strategic mind, so thinking things like, how does the game work? How does he work the system, and the mindset of games for achievements and growth in general in life. So Josh, anything we're missing from that quick and sweet intro?
No, that was perfect.
Cool. So Josh, we always like to start understanding our guests a little bit better beyond an intro, a quick text that we could describe about them, and know a little bit more about what it is that you regularly do, you normally typically do. So what does it, maybe a regular day or a week? Like if we were Josh Bolton today, nowadays, what would that feel like? What would that look like?
So for me, I currently work a night shift job. I was telling Rob earlier about that. And we're recording this at 2 a.m. And I'm constantly either sleeping during the day, but I run the show on the side. So from 6 a.m. my time till 1 p.m., I'm constantly contacting people, setting up stuff, building the website for mentorship. And then come 1 p.m., I take my medicine and go to sleep. So constant hustle and being tired.
Wow. How many hours do you get of sleep?
I shoot for 8.
Good. That's at least a good standard. It didn't sound like you were getting to that point, but yeah, cool.
Yeah, I shoot for 8, but there are times it's not consistent. It might be like 7.5.
And what are you doing with your regular clients? I know you have a night shift job, but with your clients and the hustle that you're doing right now, what does that look like?
Pretty much, it's a lot of Zoom calls with my clients. We strategize and figure things out. I actually just had one recently for a dinner, and he was trying to figure out why the marketing's not working. And so I just gave him a quick 5-minute spiel about how marketing actually works online. And then he just was like, oh my gosh, it's like a game. I'm like, literally, it is like a game.
Absolutely is. Absolutely is. So talking about games, Josh, we would like you to tell us a story of one time that you were using games, gamification, one of these strategies for something, and you wanted to go north. Things went south. You had an epic first attempt in learning or failure, as whatever you want to call it. We want to sort of be there with you. We want to take some of those lessons and understand, learn from that experience as you already did.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my favorite stories, it's not a complete crash and fail, but I was working for a security job for truck gate for a warehouse, and I'm a very chatty Cathy, even though I'm an introvert. And I was talking to all these different people, and I didn't know the main guy of the whole warehouse was this scrawny old man that looks like he's barely has $50 in his pocket, yet he's making $30K a month. And it was just one of those. Eventually he comes up, he's like, Josh, you're an observant person. Why is the warehouse suffering? And I'm like, well, this one guy tatted up with his neck tattoo, his face tattoo, and full sleeves. I said, that guy over there literally was complaining that he would have rather gotten a car crash and stay home for 6 days to 6 months than come to work. So I'm like, the word morale has more power than what's actually going on here. And that's where then he chatted with me, went in office. He actually came out. He said, okay, how do we fix this? And I said, well, honestly, if I was working for you, I said, can you afford to take $500 out of your pocket every week? Yours, not the company, and just buy some gift cards for minimum wage workers. $100 is game changing kind of thing. And he's like, yeah. That's like 2 steak dinners. I'm like, wherever you go for 2 steak dinners, I want to try that place. So he did. For a month, he Did it. He gave him very simple rules because he was having trouble with workplace injury. He said, no one gets hurt for this week. The top 5 players get $100 each. And then lo and behold, they started calling out each other. It literally became a contest in a game. Within a month, they had a whole system of each calling each other out, and productivity went up 70%. Nothing changed though, just other than the contest and the gamification of it.
Nice. And how are they, if I may ask, how are they sort of being scored for those points to achieve the top positions?
So from what I gathered, I never got involved with that. They had someone else, but essentially it was whoever increased their package amount by X% it has that many points, and whoever got hurt during the week got extra points. If you got hurt, you got minus points. So I'm like, okay.
Makes sense. It makes sense. So if somebody got hurt during the week, nobody gets the award either, right?
Oh, no, they did. But it was that person got deranked. So if maybe they were running for third place, they would have been shot down to 5 or 6.
Okay. I get it. Because I was thinking that there could be potentially a sort of group quest in that sense. Like you're competing, but still you want to make sure that you're not competing in a sense that you might not want to hurt somebody. Like that sounds terrible, but you don't really care that much. If, it's sort of their points are going down, you might care even a lot more about injuries in the workplace, not only yours, but anybody's, because you want to make sure somebody gets that, especially if you are still ranking and competing for one of the top 5. So
I think that was the tail end. Like the last 2 weeks of the month, he realized the power. So he started doing the like group stuff and saying like, if you collectively get this much, I will do this prize kind of thing. And it was actually a really nice prize. I think it was like $1,000 for the best group. They had segments, like groups of people. Whoever the 4 or 5 people had the highest everything, that group had to split $1,000 with each other.
Nice. Interesting. And that productivity spike, I'm sure, made it make sense anyways for the company to put in, company money for that as well. And to be honest, Josh, that actually looks like a big success. Don't you think?
Yeah, it was. It really was. The only downfall, or say like the air quote failure on my end, he offered me $10,000, and my very closed-minded thinking, I'm like, oh, taxes are going to be terrible. No, I don't want the money kind of thing.
Okay, so you were kind of getting a first consulting job in that sense, and it didn't happen.
Right, pretty much.
Got it. So big lesson learned there, I'm sure. I'm sure after that, well, not necessarily after that one immediately, but I'm sure you've taken that lesson.
Oh, 100%. And I made a huge ally from that. No money could have compensated for the friendship me and him have now.
Cool.
So there are certain things that are worth giving up money for. Absolutely.
I completely agree. So Josh, let's actually go, because this one had that sort of air quote fail on that side of, you not getting that consulting job, even though you did get other very interesting things like a very interesting friendship. However, we would like to know of a time when, again, you used one of these gamification strategies and actually it went to become a success, something that you want to say that you're proud of, and maybe you want to showcase, again, naming names or not, depending. I understand that there's many people who cannot name names because of NDAs and all these things. But we want to sort of be there in the story, especially to take the lessons and understandings that you got out of it.
So it wasn't with a client or anything. I do martial arts, and I've recently achieved a 2nd degree black belt. And that was a test of grit in and of itself. But when I was going through it, essentially the gamification, I said to myself, okay, doesn't matter how long this takes, you're going to get through this. And when you get through this and to the end, your prize will be your next rank. Those who are not familiar, the American Navy SEALs, they do a very intense workout, essentially try to crush them every day. And it was up there with a Navy SEAL workout. We were all like jelly and trying to crawl out of the building once we were done with the test. And I just kept telling myself, you have to get to the end. You have to reach this achievement. You've been in this game too long. You can't just quit now. And I did. It kind of flopped and almost failed at the end. But that was my proudest moment, is gritting through essentially 6 hours of true pain.
6 hours? Oh, my goodness. That is a lot.
Yeah.
What martial arts is that?
So it's Kempo karate. It's how I explain it to people who are not familiar with martial arts is imagine Cobra Kai, get in and get dirty, but taught by Mr. Miyagi. So it's like, Daniel-san, if they want your wallet, give them wallet. If they want this, give them your phone. But if they want your life, you take their life, kind of thing.
Interesting. In fact, there is a series about Cobra Kai now, I think. Mm-hmm. Like what happened after the happenings of
I think it's on
movie.
Netflix. I haven't watched it, though.
Me neither. I used to do karate when I was very, very young. I started like at 5 and it quit. Well, it ended my career like at 12 or something like that. I want to say maybe 11. But I was close to getting to black belt. I was probably a couple of years away from the initial, the baseline black belt. Mine was Ryobukai, I think was the name.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. I got to meet one of the masters of that because the sensei of our dojo invited him every now and then, a guy from Japan. He was like a top notch. I can't, for the best of me, I can't remember his name. But
it's
he was
good.
Yeah, he was apparently, I mean, I was very, very young, so I have no, and there was no internet as well.
Right. You couldn't just
so
look him
up. He could have just been a Japanese guy who they brought in and paid him to wear the clothes and say a couple of things, and we would never have known how good he was. I think he did a couple of demonstrations, but it's not like you could actually verify who he was back in the day.
Right. Yeah, it was more of faith and good luck than anything else back then.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a lot of lessons learned. I was talking about this recently in karate. I was terrible, and I mean terrible at combat. I really didn't like to punch other people. Like it was something that was innate in me. I just didn't like to do that. I was better at the sort of doing the forms, or kata, I think is the name. So I was a lot better on that one. But once I was in a competition, like not a national or anything. It was just like the regular competitions that we had. And for once I was just about to win. Like we were tied, final point. And I literally punched the guy in the center of his chest. So that's like absolute point. But maybe I went a bit too far and punched him a little bit too hard. So the guy kind of went back and fell on his ass, basically. For whatever reason, I still can't explain it to this day. The guy fell down into his chest, and I said, okay, oh my goodness, for the first time I've won a combat in a competition. This is like the moment of my life. I wasn't getting any medals or anything. Like I was just winning a single combat. And the guy got the point. For whatever reason, I still can't explain it to this day. It was one of my childhood frustrations.
He probably snuck in a punch or a kick that you couldn't see. And
I hope. I really hope
we'll go with that. We'll mend the remedy. He had mantis reflexes.
He gave me a mental whip.
Yes.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was an interesting one. I was a lot better in kata. I did get like a very mild recognition on that one, but I ended up having a bit too much of it. I think it was like 6 or 7 years. I was super young, and discipline comes harder.
Yeah, especially at that age.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not sure I would have done it differently nowadays because I was a bit burnt out, I think. But I do think I learned many, many lessons, and it was definitely part of my sort of healthy habits as a kid to have that physical activity that I got in thanks to going to karate. So I'm very thankful for that.
100%. Yeah, same here. I thank my instructor as every so often. It's just telling him, like, dude, when you picked me up, like if we could let the game play out the way it did, I probably would be in juvie or doing something really stupid because I had a lot of rage back then. I did not know where to put it. So he just told me, he's like, I just picked you up because he's like, I wanted you to punch something instead of you taking your funnel cake and throwing it at some lady's face and getting in trouble with the cops. You just punch this dummy over here. It's not going to sue you.
That's a good strategy. Very, very good strategy. You still do martial arts?
Oh yeah, 15 years now.
Wow, fantastic. That's absolutely great. So Josh, I'm guessing that, with the design that you created for your own martial arts, strategy, mini design you did there, the strategy you created for that not client that you told us before, and many of the other things that you're doing now, I'm guessing that you have some sort of way of doing your stuff in gamification or using gamification. Is there a process that you follow? Are there some steps? Like, how do you do it?
So I go by rules and stats for just pretty much everything I do now in life. If I want my kryptonite is a hamburger. So if I want a hamburger, I have to do X amount of days of good productive work, and then I can buy myself a hamburger. If I don't achieve it, I don't get the burger. And that's a lot of what I do now. Like I'm constantly testing the system for myself. So when I do my current work, I'm seeing how fast I can get things done. And it's gotten to the point I can do my whole job in 3 hours, but then it's like oh shoot, I still have to be here for another 4. So yeah, it's just constantly leveling up and testing the system, how fast, how efficient, the quality. And it's kind of what I do in general, teaching my clients and people is like, you got to have like a gamer's mindset when you look at embarking on a business and advertising. Okay, I will buy 20 whatever, and I know only 5 are going to do well. So what are the 5, and how do I maybe make it 6 kind of thing?
There you go. There you go. Just a quick break before we continue with this episode. If you've been enjoying this podcast, I would really appreciate if you share it with your friends and family and on social media. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at RobAlvarezB and the hashtag ProfessorGame, all one word. And in Facebook, you can find the Professor Game page. Thanks in advance for your engagement. So Josh, again, from your experience and what you've done, would you say that there is some sort of, I don't want to call it silver bullet, but maybe a best practice, something that, if you introduce it when you're creating some sort of gamified project, is at least going to make it a lot better?
One thing I've come to realize with the human mind or condition, whatever you want to call it, is we really like games. And if you make the rules simple enough that even an outsider can watch and understand, it's a very effective system. And that's kind of what I go for. Like I was saying earlier with the burger, if I do 5 days of productive, I can have one burger of my choice. But if I'm not productive, I know the rule I've given myself, I can't do that. That's kind of what I go for others and teach others is set simple but effective rules.
Sounds like very, very good advice. Simple always ends up winning the day.
Yeah, so you don't have to think.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to say it's easier for the mind to comprehend instead of this whole complicated web of if 1 fires, 2 fires, but then 5 goes off. You're like, simple kind of thing.
Especially in gamification. I mean, if you're talking commercial games, maybe eventually, like I'm now playing a lot of Spider-Man on my PlayStation 4. So, there's all sorts of moves and things you do here, and you get on a mission, but you have all these missions within the mission that you can do. So you have to do swing kicks and this other thing just to get more points. You can purchase new suits and all these things, but that just makes it a lot more complicated. But it's a commercial game.
Right.
In the case of gamification, I do think there is a very good case for making things as simple as possible. Of course, sometimes, complexity does sort of creep in, but going for simplicity, especially as you were pointing out, of understanding, like being able to understand what is going on and what are the results expected and how to get there, I think is something that actually wins most of the time at the very least.
Yeah.
So Josh, is there somebody that you, like after hearing these questions, hearing the vibe of the podcast, I know you heard at least a couple of interviews before, is there somebody that comes to your mind, somebody that you say, I would like to listen to this person in Professor Game?
So actually my mentor for business, I'll get you his email afterwards. His name's John Limbacher. He's very good at explaining the gamification of business and the rewards of it.
Cool. Sounds like a very, very good character to have on this podcast around gamification and games and all these things that we do in the sort of real life, so to speak. It's not only about the entertainment side, which I enjoy, don't get me wrong, very much, but it's about how to use those strategies as well.
Exactly.
So talking about recommendations, Josh, is there a book that you recommend the engagers to read? Again, think of these people as people who might be using game strategies, gamification for, again, something else.
Book-wise, the only one that helped me under...
And it could be a book related to the subject or not, so it's entirely up to you.
It's a dense book, I'll put it this way. If you want to understand the mind and how the mind works and it's the rules of the game, I would recommend Thinking Fast and Slow.
Kahneman, right?
I believe so, yeah. I don't know, the book's not next to me.
Yeah, I think that's the book. Very, very good book, engagers. Very recommended. as well. And talking about recommendations, we've talked about other people, other guests, other people's books. What would you say is your superpower? What is that thing that you do at least better than most other people, especially in the world of gamification?
Observation and listening to what's going on. That's how I figured out the warehouse situation, is I just observed and listened. And apparently most don't do that. I innately have the stats, I guess, for that.
Maybe it has to do, and I'm hypothesizing here, at the start you were saying that you're a bit of an introvert. Maybe it has to do with that.
Probably. Yeah, I don't like small talk. I'm very blunt. It's like, how are you doing? I'm like, fine. Well, how are you? I'm just like, oh, well, why aren't you explaining about the birds or this or that? I was like, that's inefficient. Keep going.
There you go. There you go. So that makes you be very keen on listening as well and observing what's happening in and around yourself. And talking about what's happening and what's going on in the world of games, what would you say is your favorite game?
Oh my gosh. Skyrim. I love
the series in itself, right?
Yeah, I love the open world. Red Dead Redemption 2. I like that one too. I like the open world, ton of possibilities. If I just want to go march around in a mountain and kill trolls, I can. I have lost many hours doing that too.
Invested. It can
There
also,
we go.
if you take it as research as well, and of course there's access to everything, but you can also take a part of it at least as research. Like, and if you like open games, open scenarios, and all these things, Spider-Man that I was mentioning is a pretty neat one in that sense, and the ones of Shadows of Mordor and Shadows of War of the Tolkien series, super open world, super open. So that could be something that sort of is in your. Well, I'm not sure about the Shadows of War.
Well, I've played it. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if Shadows of War. I have it. I started it, but I haven't gone sort of super deep. So I'm not sure if it's as open as Shadows of Mordor. Just like you do like anything.
It's very similar to the Sid Meier's Civilization series.
Okay.
It's the top-down view, and then by the way, that was like my one game. It didn't matter what hand you gave me. I always won that game for the Sid Meier series.
Very, very, very good games. For sure, it was a revolution in the sort of turn-based video games, for sure, and still continues to be. You know, they just launched 6, I think, Civilization 6.
Something like that, yeah. I probably have to go find it on Steam.
I'm sure it is lying around waiting for you, Josh. And talking about things that might be waiting for you, when we have some time in the podcast, we'd like to go for sort of these questions that come from the audience. And we get random questions. We sort of select them randomly and make them to guests like yourself. So the question, and I think it does make sense, I was sort of going through the randomizer and fell on this one, and I think it does make sense for you. And the question is quite simple, blunt, and straight to the point, as probably you like it as well. The question is gamification useful for marketing? And of course, I would add, just to make sure you don't say yes or no, why?
It's actually probably the best tool to use for marketing, because you have to have multiple toggles, switches, whatever you want to call it, buttons that you're pressing. And like I was mentioning earlier, you have to figure out which one's working. Then as the gamer, you delete the other 15 and you focus on those 5. Then you niche down on those 5 and see which one's going. You delete the other 2. You get to the point you have 2 or 3 that are just heavy hitters. And that's kind of what gamers do every time. They're like, oh, this action's inefficient in Call of Duty. I won't do that anymore.
Certainly is a gamer thing to be optimizing for what you can achieve in the game. And if you put it that way, it could be a very good way to approach marketing as well. So Josh, thank you very much for, investing your time today with the Engagers, especially at 2 a.m. your time. I appreciate that you also have, the night job. So it's a Saturday, so you have a day off. So, well, it's already a Sunday for you as well, as for me. So you kind of have that day off. So, but still, it's a very heavy hitting kind of thing at 2 a.m. Do you have any final piece of advice, any final words? Of course, tell us where we can find more about Josh before we take off.
Keep focused on the achievement or the goal in life, what you're wanting. It sounds stereotypical, but grit down, focus on the goal. Do not pay attention to all the noise and politics going on around you, and you will achieve what you want in the game, essentially. As far as contacting me, I have a great website, forums and everything. joshboltonshow.com. You can literally just say, hey, I heard you from the podcast. And fun fact, I have actually a contest going. I want to see if your guests can do this. If you tweet at me or tag me in Instagram, I don't care where you are in the world, I will send you a sticker of my I will actually make a sticker. I have a vinyl cutter and everything and mail it to you. So be sure to tag me with the screenshot of this podcast, and you pretty much got a sticker.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. That is very, very nice. Thank you very much again, Josh. Very good words. Very good thing to, help keep the mind focused. You probably can be very well focused as well by somebody like Nir Eyal. I don't know if you've heard of his book. Lately, I've been mentioning him quite a bit. I'm not sure why. Indistractable. Okay. Have you heard of it?
No. I guess it's in our book I'm going to have to listen to.
Very, very interesting, especially on the principle of, as you were saying, sort of focusing on the right thing, going all in on that, then also having some recovery time. Like it's a very interesting concept and way of doing all of that. So thanks again, Josh. Thanks for being here with us today, for investing your time, for providing your experience, your knowledge with the engagers. However, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over. Hey, engagers. Thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Josh. And as you could see, we have these questions that we make every now and then, and if you would like to include yours, all you have to do is go to professorgame.com/question and ask that question. If you are selected, it'll come up in a future episode and you will get your answer. And before you go on to your next mission, before you click continue, remember to subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.